This is Neil Schneider for MTBS-TV at CES 2015. I'm in the Razer exhibit. To my immediate right is Chris Mitchell from Razer, and he's here to tell us about OSVR. Welcome to the program, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
So why don't you hold this up for the camera? What is OSVR?
So OSVR itself is actually a software framework that kind of sets a standard in virtual reality. So the problem in virtual reality, obviously, is that there's a ton of different hardware and no standards for it, which makes development for that hardware very, very difficult. And so we kind of set out to develop that standard and in an open source framework. So we're kind of inviting the entire industry to help drive that forward. Reason primarily being is that we've kind of been anticipating virtual reality for a long time now. And it's always been like almost there, but it's not quite there yet, right? And so we kind of set out to help virtual reality get into the consumer space. And essentially what we're doing is two things. On the software side, we have the open source framework. And on the hardware side, we have the hacker dev kit that you see here. And it's also entirely open source, by the way. So you will be able to download all the schematics, electronics, everything, the 3D files for the hacker dev kit from our website. You could actually 3D print your own mechanical modules. You could do whatever you want with it, really. You can build your own HMD. Primarily that is meant for other manufacturers to build or improve existing HMDs with the stuff that we've been developing. So it's not really it's not a consumer-facing product. That's why, and it's not even a Razer product by right. It's that's why you don't see a triple-headed snake or anything like that on there. Because for us, for Razer, we've always had a much stronger interest in peripherals. That's what we're good at. That's what we've been doing for the longest time. And so the hacker dev kit is really there to help other people provide better HMDs and help with the OSVR platform on the software side of things to kind of develop for that.
So what I'm hearing two things. I'm hearing that it's a hardware platform, and I'm hearing that it's a software platform as well. Is it one? Is it both?
It's actually a software platform. The hardware is actually irrelevant in the big picture because the way that OSVR works is that you can use any type of HMD with it. Like the Oculus DK2, for example, is supported. We're supporting VRvana, GameFace. So there's a bunch of different HMD guys already on board. More to come over the next couple of months. So actually, if you have a DK2, you can start developing for OSVR pretty much straight up with that. Or you can use this. But for a software side of things, it's hardware agnostic. So any hardware, that's the whole point of it at the end of the day.
So when you're talking about a standard, what do you mean by that? Like what in Razer's view is a viable standard?
So actually, we're not necessarily defining even the standards, but primarily we're open sourcing a platform so that, like, for example, if you have different types of motion sensing controllers, right? That data being fed back to a game engine comes in very, very different formats. So standardizing that input that comes back to the game engine so that as a game developer, you only develop once for it and then you immediately make it work with any motion sensing controller, for example. That's kind of setting that standard to kind of simplify the development for games in that sense.
So what I'm gathering is it's a software development kit. Like, is it something that, like, this, you use this software middleware to, link up the engines? Like, how would you describe the architecture?
It's more a framework that allows you to understand how anything else within OSVR is written, and then basically it's segmenting the different parts of development for virtual reality. In the sense that if I'm an HMD guy, I just make sure that whatever I get from a game engine, I make it look in the best possible way on the HMD. I also make sure that my head tracker has the best possible input and the best, it works with any game engine. As a game engine guy or as a game developer, you just make sure that your plugin works and that you put out stereoscopic images and stuff like that, but you focus on the game development. Then as the input device guys, they write plugins that make them work on the OSVR framework. So basically all it is really well, you could say like it's a similar language that everyone is speaking in that sense, and then because they're all speaking the same language, everything works together.
Now, is it open source, open standard, both?
It's fully open source. It's open standard.
You see, that's the thing, because people they've been referring to it as an open standard. Is that an accurate way to frame it?
Well, a lot of the standards haven't been set yet, right? And we're not necessarily the ones setting them either, because basically there's different categories, there's different experts in this space. So a lot of the standards are right. Yeah, I mean they're open standards in this case, right? And a lot of those standards have to be set, but it's built in an open source framework in that sense. Yeah.
Okay, good. So now for those who aren't familiar, because see, open source, there's a romantic connotation to it. Everyone contributes. I know, like with MTBS, we run Variable Perception, which are open source drivers. Can you explain what open source is? Because I don't think a lot of people really understand what open source is.
I'm not sure if I'm the best person to give an accurate representation of what open source is, but the basically everything, every line of code that is in the framework is going to be available for any coder to look at, to modify and contribute back to the whole code base in that sense. So it allows for software development in a very like in a manner that is like a consolidated effort from people all over the industry to learn from each other, to kind of share code with each other and kind of improve it from there on out as well.
So one of the challenges with technologies like this is that people are still inventing things. I mean, even if we take like the biggest brands in the world, they're still developing. How do you handle a scenario? When I say you, I mean OSVR. How is it handled when a manufacturer has, we'll call it a secret sauce? Let's say they have an IP that they don't necessarily want to share, but they want to contribute to this. How is a scenario like that handled?
So within the OSVR framework, there can be proprietary components that people can use. So the important thing is that the OSVR, the framework itself is open source, and then if you have plugins available that you want to keep proprietary, that's perfectly feasible as well.
Okay, and you know, so for Razer, what was their motivation in doing this? Like, how long? First off, actually, the first question is, how long has Razer been developing this?
Well, we've been looking at the VR space for more than 4 years or so, but development on this probably has been around like 18 months or so. So it's been a long time coming.
So it's a big, it's a big commitment. I mean, there must be. Is it a big software package? Like, how big would you estimate it is?
Well, actually, a lot of the plugin development and OSVR development is done by the respective companies supporting it, right? So the major contribution from Razer is really the architecture and the framework, which is not that much in itself. It's the plugins that kind of make up the meat and bones of the software, and that's kind of everyone developing like together. So it's not that Razer and our co-founder Sensix, they're the other like kind of lead on OSVR. Not all of the software development has been done by us. Like with game plugins have been developed by game developers and plugin developers, right? So yeah, it's not that Razer's doing like all the software development work by any means.
So have you established like support? Like, have some content makers committed to using the SDK yet?
So yeah, we have actually a ton of partners that we've already announced. We focus in the first phase leading up to CES, kind of we focused on game engines, we focused on hardware guys primarily. We already got a couple of game devs on board, like Gearbox Software and Techland, and there's a bunch of additional partners that we'll be announcing basically leading up all the way to GDC and even E3 that are interested and already looking at developing that we just haven't announced yet.
What about revenue? Like, is this a commercial endeavor at all? Like, is there, what sustains that?
Right. No, it's entirely open source. It's and not for profit by any means. So actually, by GDC, we're going to make it available open source under the Apache 2.0 license, and at that point in time, anyone can contribute it, and it's a self-sustained kind of thing. For us, the motivation has been more that we want virtual reality to happen, and our focus is more on the peripheral side of things. So that portion would be monetized, of course.
Now, when you say, what do you mean? What would be monetized? I didn't understand.
So sell peripherals.
So do you see this as a long-term plan as far as OSVR? So what if an organization like Kronos or DirectX or any of these other standards groups, what if they came out with a standard that did all that? What position would OSVR take? Would they be supportive of things like that, or would they be like, no, it should be OSVR? Like, where do you see how do you see things branching out?
Ultimately, it's supportive. The goal is to create an open market where everyone is kind of contributing and working towards the same goal. If other standards get established or anything like that, we'd be happy to support it in whatever way possible.
Okay, very good. Look, good luck with this, because I mean, it's been covered, it's been well featured in the press, and it's regularly credited as being open source. But I'm glad you brought up that the importance about standards and industry and so on. That it's these haven't been defined yet.
Right.
And do you see OSVR as something that changes with the times? And what I mean by that is the technologies change. We learn new things. This is kind of being put out before products have even been released. Do you anticipate any challenges because of that?
It probably will bring challenges, yes. And OSVR is going to change a lot over the next 12 months, 24 months. You will definitely see a lot of stuff happening on that side. Ultimately, VR at this point in time is not ready for a consumer market, right? And so in the quest of establishing that, there's going to be a lot of changes to it, definitely.
Very good. Well, thanks for joining us. So this is Neil Schneider, MTBS-TV at CES 2015. Thank you for watching.